Hello, I'm Two-Stroke Yard Sale. You might remember me from such films as I Ran into the Only Tree in Nevada and S is for Suck in Canic Rival S. This video is about setting up my Springfield Armory Prodigy in the Limited Optics Division of USPSA. I'm a longtime USPSA competitor and I classified as Grandmaster in Limited with a custom 2011 pistol. I've owned several custom limited and open pistols based on the 2011 modular design. I've shot many major matches with all of them, but won only two a long time ago, one in limited and one in open. I am far from a gunsmith and I barely do more than field strip, clean, and lubricate my pistols. This video is intended only for competitors in the Limited Optics Division of USPSA, not home defenders, concealed carriers, or recreational plinkers. If you've got a weapon light attached to your Prodigy or you LARP with a battle belt, this video is not for you. Springfield Armory introduced the 1911 DS Prodigy so staccato owners could feel good about no longer having the bottom tier modular 1911. Nonetheless, Springfield has vast experience fitting 1911 barrels, slides, and frames, and the Prodigy has the basic ingredients of a good competition pistol: a long frame with a bull barrel. They just filled it with cheap small parts, which may or may not be a problem after thousands of rounds. I purchased a 5-inch Prodigy as a kind of short block kit, a foundation and framework for building a competition pistol. I got it in July 2023, so my gun has lightning cuts around the disconnector rail and possibly other changes Springfield has made to improve the model. Like a house getting a renovation, I plan to replace many of the internal parts. Over the years, my 2011 spare parts collection has grown to include gunsmithed hammer and SEAR, extractors, firing pin and springs, mainsprings and caps, guide rods, recoil springs, and a gunsmith's grip, trigger, beavertail, magwell combination. Hell, I even have a spare slide. As a result of my 2011 parts hoarding, my Prodigy was destined to become a Frankenstein's monster.
That's Frankenstein.
Out of the box, my Prodigy had a good slide-to-frame fit and a very good barrel-to-slide fit. Racking it by hand, the slide cycling felt tight but gritty, and it hanged on the disconnector. More on that later. I removed the barrel and guide rod assembly and applied abrasive paste to the frame and slide rails. I cycled the slide on the frame repeatedly until the tight points of the finish coating wore down. Then I cleaned the nasty black sludge formed by the abrasive paste and coating. The 2-piece guide rod was first on the list to go. I had 2 spare 1-piece guide rods to try, 1 steel and 1 tungsten. This required a new reverse plug specific to the Prodigy from EGW. The plug required a few touches of the file to fit my Prodigy's slide. Of course, I used the tungsten guide rod because I like heavy guns. For the recoil spring, I used an unknown weight from a .38 Super Open gun from many years ago. It's probably 9 or 10 pounds, which is probably what the stock spring is. I just went by feel when racking the slide by hand. Out of the box, my Prodigy's trigger was not up to the task of competition. It was only slightly gritty and creepy, but much too stiff. A Canic Rival striker-fired trigger is better out of the box. I am accustomed to triggers of about 2 pounds in my custom pistols, so the Prodigy needed to be improved. I had a hammer, SEAR, and disconnector that were previously in my custom limited gun. They were hard chrome finished after being gunsmith fit and tuned. I installed them with new EGW stainless pins and a new hammer strut. With the second-hand fire control parts, the original Prodigy thumb safety no longer fit. I was not willing to modify any stock parts in case I had to reinstall them for warranty work, so I purchased a Limcat Ambi thumb safety. I figured the Limcat's shields would prevent me from slowing the slide with my thumb, as I had a tendency to rub the slide on my limited gun. I had never fit a thumb safety before, so I took my time and was careful with the $140 component.
Are you sure this is how they did it?
Yes, it's all written down in the notes. Now tie off.
Now I know why gunsmiths get paid the big bucks. After much marking, filing, testing, removing and replacing, I had the safety working as intended to block the SEAR. But when I put the slide on, it wouldn't activate. Not only did the safety need to be fitted to the SEAR, it also needed to be fit to the slide cutout. That's something they didn't mention in the thumb safety videos I watched. The stock thumb safeties seem perfectly acceptable from an ergonomic standpoint. I would definitely use them if they fit a new SEAR and hammer and my thumb didn't drag on the slide with them. The stock Prodigy grip is adequate, and you could improve its traction with epoxy and silicon carbide. I doubt grip tape will stick to it. But I had a spare gunsmithed STI grip from my Limcat open gun with my own palm swell and silicon carbide by Limcat with a big Limcat aluminum magazine well. It also was fit with an SV trigger with my preferred interchangeable trigger insert. This STI grip fit my Prodigy without any modification, along with the beavertail from my Limcat open gun. I think it's an Ed Brown because I don't like side cutouts in my beavertails. The beavertail is pinned and does not act as a safety. My STI grip included a plastic mainspring housing, and it had a mainspring of unknown weight from its days in the Limcat open gun. It was strong enough to ignite rifle primers in that, so it must be able to ignite pistol primers in the Prodigy, right? This STI grip has a Dawson magazine catch with a threaded release button. It's just a tiny bit extended compared to standard mag release buttons. I can't use a button extension because I end up pressing it when building my weak hand grip. The stock Prodigy trigger does not have a pre-travel adjustment tab you will find on triggers in custom 2011 guns. You get the pre-travel your Prodigy is delivered with, and you can't change it. With my STI grip and SV trigger installed, I adjusted the tab for my preferred pre-travel, which is minimal. I yanked the firing pin and spring out of an old limited slide and replaced the stock parts. I installed a spare slide stop that measured 1/1000th of an inch larger in diameter than the 0.198 inch stock slide stop. I think it's an EGW or it could be an Ed Brown. It's not extended, which is fine because I won't be doing any slide lock reloads with this gun. Another new part I installed was a COLT SEAR spring from EGW, just because I wasn't sure the stock Prodigy item was going to work in the STI grip. With the new SEAR spring and the gunsmithed hammer and SEAR, the trigger pull was clean but stiff. Prodigy ships with one optic plate that does not fit any competitive big window, big dot, red dot sights. I ordered the Springfield A14B plate with my gun, but it did not fit the slide due to a manufacturing defect. So I did my initial test firing with the iron sight plate. My expectations for its first range session were low. I expected failures to feed, failures to extract, and failures to ignite. I expected to swap recoil springs, swap mainsprings, and rebend the extractor. Imagine my surprise when the gun just ran. Mostly.
It's alive!
The slide hanging up on the disconnector was not an issue when actually firing the gun. I fired an assortment of 150 grain coated flat point, 147 grain jacketed flat point, and 127 grain coated conical bullets. My ammo used N320 and sport pistol powders with Fiocchi, Federal, and Murom pistol primers. I had one failure to ignite a Fiocchi pistol primer, which means it needs a heavier mainspring. and I had one instance of the hammer following, which means it needs the SEAR spring tweaked. Also, its slide locked open with one round left in my competition magazines. Its stiff trigger caused me to have trigger freeze while trying to shoot at my usual pace. Finally, the right side thumb safety dug into my strong hand, causing pain and removing skin. Besides those teething problems, the gun felt disconcertingly light, and I had difficulty making sharp transitions. I considered adding weight, even swapping my stainless steel grip to it. I returned to Dr. Frankenstein's laboratory to make adjustments to the monster.
Do not open this door.
I fit and tuned a spare extractor from a .40 caliber limited gun. I also fit a new Dawson firing pin stop, which required removing much of its round top to match the Prodigy optic cut. I installed a 17-pound mainspring, which did not change the stiff trigger at all. So I bent the SEAR spring leaf until I got the trigger light, and I bent the disconnector leaf to give a positive reset. After multiple tries of bending and reinstalling, I finally got the trigger down to where I like it, close to 2 pounds. Then I installed a 15-pound mainspring. I filed and dremeled the thumb safeties to be more ergonomic, taking a lot of width off the right side. Then I brightened them up, but they aren't anywhere near as polished as the beavertail. For my MBX tube magazines, with Graham's springs and followers, I sanded off the lock tab portion of each follower. I did this after taking off a bunch of metal from the slide lock. Even after adding a detent divot in the slide stop, a Graham's follower would strongly push up the slide stop while it had one round in the magazine. I was using my Staccato and Prodigy magazines with stock springs and stock lock open followers with Dawson base pads for 21 rounds. Neither activated the slide lock after I hacked away at it. I have since added Graham springs and followers to these tubes for 22 rounds, the same as MBX tubes. I noticed marks on some magazines, so I filed down the protruding grip screws. My Prodigy came out of the box with a slight bevel to the edge of the breech face and disconnector rail. It looked to me like it was done by hand with a file, not machined. It seems Springfield was trying to remedy that cycling hitch over the disconnector. I finished it with a stone and emery cloth. While I was changing the mainspring, I took the opportunity to swap to a stainless steel STI magazine well for additional weight. And while I had the mainspring housing off, I epoxied some silicon carbide over its checkering. I installed a 10-pound recoil spring and left the gun mostly without lubrication for its second range test. It did not like to be run dry with a 10-pound spring, experiencing 2 stovepipes. So I switched to a 9-pound spring and lubed it with oil. Again, it ran like a sewing machine with all types of ammo. Even with its SEAR spring tweaked very light, it never hammer followed. The trimmed magazine followers no longer caused premature slide lock. The 15-pound mainspring ignited all pistol primers from Federal, Fiocchi, and Meram. It failed to ignite one Wolff small rifle 223 primer, but the fact that it lit off the other 223 primers was surprising. After the range session, the gun was noticeably smoother, with more finish coating removed from the slide and frame rails. The slide no longer hanged on the disconnector. The trigger was good and didn't hammer follow. It ignited all the primers I would use in practice and in matches. It felt ready to compete in matches. I even felt less inclined to swap my steel grip. Except for one big problem. It had no optic. The optic plate for my RMR footprint optic was defective, and Springfield was initially unhelpful with warranty service. And with that, I will bring this video to a close as I wait for a warranty replacement optic plate. I will make a follow-up video after mounting the optic and shooting some matches and practice sessions. In this video description, I will include a link to a playlist with very useful 1911 and 2011 tuning videos, and I will list parts replaced in this pistol. I leave you with this motivational speech about the Springfield Prodigy.
Hello, handsome. You're a good-looking fellow, do you know that? People laugh at you. People hate you, but why do they hate you? Because they are jealous. Look at that boyish face. Look at that sweet smile. Do you want to talk about physical strength? Do you want to talk about sheer muscle? Do you want to talk about the Olympian ideal? You are a god. And listen to me. You are not evil. You are good.